Okay folks, welcome to the video dismantling the Mitchel 410 fishing reel. This is a fast retrieve fishing reel, mainly designed for spinning, and what I'm going to go through is how to take each part apart, and then later on there'll be another video in which we'll go over how to put it all back together again. Okay,
so the first part of the dismantling is to remove the baffle plate, take these screws out. There's one, two, and there's a third one here, and the baffle plate just lifts off, but there will be a number of cogs in there, so make sure you do it over a sheet of newspaper. Okay, so once the screws are out, lift the baffle plate off, and as you can see there are some loose cogs in there. Okay, so with the cogs temporarily put back, we have at the back here we have the ratchet, and here we have the winder, which makes the spool move up and down to wind the line onto the spool evenly. And then on this cog here turns this piece here, and this makes the spool spin round and round and round and round with the bail arm on it. Okay, so as we saw when we dismantled the reel, these cogs are loose, and they're quite a tight fit too, so if you get a little bit of grit in there or something like that, you will feel it when you're winding the reel. Okay, so you can hear this is a spring-loaded ratchet, and if you push the ratchet arm, you can see it moves onto the winder, and you can hear it clicking up there, and it comes off again. Okay, now this piece here does unscrew from the handle, but there's no real need to take it off unless it's very badly worn, and generally what you do is replace the whole baffle plate anyway. Okay, so back to this section here. This cog here, it just lifts out, and the back of it's got some, I don't know if you can see it, it's got some cams, you see that, and that's responsible for sliding this plate backward and forwards, which is part of the winding action. And then this plate here at the back just has two screws, which we'll now undo. Okay, so that's now removed, and this piece here, if you see there's a notch on one end. That goes into that hole. Let me just point that out with the screwdriver, look, into that hole there, and that's how you get the winding action when it goes up and down, when the reel goes up and down. Okay, so there is a further screw. There's a screw here. This is just used to lubricate the reel, so you can take this out, but you don't really have to. It doesn't really have a mechanical function. So the Mitchel removable spool system, you push the button and pull, and that lifts the whole thing off. So the center of the spool is just a friction fit with a spring washer, a bent over spring washer there, and that just pulls out of here. The next step is to remove this, and this is a slotted plate, so there is actually a connecting lug which you can just see just there, which keeps it from rotating, and that also makes it quite difficult to remove, unfortunately. So you have to sort of gently lever it out piece by piece, and sometimes it can help if you tap it. Okay, so that's the plate removed. The back side of it is this side with the protrusion on it. Okay, so inside the Mitchel Garcia 410, we have a counterweight, and then here we have the bail arm rest, and here we have a spring. And this here, you've got to be careful now because this nut is off. This contains the roller bearings for the reel, and if there's no grease in there, they will just fall out all over the floor. So you're really careful you don't lose those. Okay. So next, take these out, and the spring will be unhooked by just pushing it away with a screwdriver, and then we can take the counterweight out. And next we'll take off the bail arm. Okay, so we got all that off. Took the counterweight off yet, but we're taking all the bail arm stops off. And just here you can see there's a loose washer on top. In fact, I think there's two washers there, so don't lose them. And underneath you can see the roller bearing. Now this little piece at the top of the roller bearing does actually come loose pretty easily, so don't take that off unless you really have to. Sometimes they need replacing. Usually they just need cleaning up and greasing. But anyway, that's how that works. So next I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to show you how to take the bail arm off. Okay, so before we do that, remember that on this side of the reel there is a washer, so don't lose it. Okay, so the bail arm has a screw on one side, and it has a big screw on the other side, and behind this there's a spring, so be careful you don't lose that, because the reel won't work properly without it. There's also a tungsten line guide here. On very old reels the line used to cut through the bail arm, and so Mitchel put a screwed in tungsten line guide, and it's quite a small part, so be careful when you take the screw out that you don't drop it on the floor. Alright. Okay, so there's the bail arm and the spring and the two screws that hold it on. And if we look at the actual piece where it came, you can see there's a hollow area where the spring fits. Okay, just a word about the baffle plate then. This and this do actually unscrew, but it's very hard to do, so I don't advise you do it unless you really need to. That is riveted down, so you can't take it off, as far as I can see anyway. And if you look at the Mitchel parts sheet, this ratchet arm actually is just part of the baffle plate, it's not a separate part, so that doesn't surprise me. This is quite a delicate mechanism, and if it's working I would just leave it alone. You don't muck about with it really. Okay, so this piece here is actually the end of the threaded part is crimped, so this cannot actually come off. So you can't really do anything with that, unfortunately. And generally speaking, you don't really need to. Inside here, this is a lubrication cover. Inside it is a screw, and if you can prise the lubrication cover off, you can actually unscrew this, but the screw has been put on with it's something like Loctite or something like that, and it has a high friction. It doesn't come off very easily, and if you think about it, that's quite a good thing. So unless you really need to take this off, unless there's an awful lot of wear in it, then it's best just to leave that alone. Okay, so it's very rare that you would need to dismantle the actual fishing reel, but there is a spring inside there which you can tap off. It does come out. That does come off. It's just held on by the threads. And if you push this, you can get inside, and you can see what's left of the ratchet mechanism. Well, actually, that is the ratchet mechanism. And there's really not much in there, to be honest. So, well, that's how you take that off anyway, if you need to do that. Okay, that's what the pieces look like when they're off. And they do come off. There's a flat on this thread here, so it only goes on in one particular way, and then it just screws on, and that forms the drag mechanism for the reel, which can be it's patented, I believe, and I think it can increase or reduce the drag depending on what you want to do when you're fishing. Okay, so this was all done with one small screwdriver. This reel was pre-assembled for the video, and so there are a couple of parts that you may need to use slightly different tools for. Some of the slightly wider screws like this, and perhaps the lubrication screw, and the nut here, which I think is about 12mm, and a socket. You maybe need a socket for that, but apart from that, everything can be done with one screwdriver. Mitchel were very well designed reels, and they do last a long time. The cogs are particularly fine, so if you get something in there you will notice, and it's worth stripping it down. And if you look out for the next video, I'll go through putting the reel back together, so look out for that. Thanks for watching. This is Avian Fish TV.